Chosen one. Stop scrolling and lock in right now. Not in a moment. Now, because what you have been carrying since the beginning of this week, that low, persistent hum of unease underneath everything you do, is not random. It is not anxiety without cause. It is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It is a signal. And if you do not understand what that signal means before this day closes, you will walk into tomorrow with the wrong interpretation of what is already moving on your behalf. The enemy does not waste pressure on people who are not a threat. He does not craft elaborate strategies against lives that are going nowhere. The weight you have been feeling, the one that sits on your chest before you even fully open your eyes in the morning, that weight is evidence. It is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of assignment. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I am going to hand you something that the enemy has been working all week to make sure you never received. And if you leave before the end, you will walk out of here with only half a picture. And half a picture is more dangerous than no picture at all. Let me tell you what this week has actually felt like. It has not just been hard. Hard is something you know how to handle. You have been handling hard your entire life. This has been different. This week has felt like standing in a room where all the air has slowly been replaced with something heavier. You can still breathe, but every breath costs more than it should. Maybe you felt it most at night, lying in the dark, completely still, while your mind replayed every conversation, every decision, every moment you questioned whether you chose correctly, and you could not explain why those specific moments kept surfacing. They were not the worst things that ever happened to you, but this week they would not leave you alone. Or maybe it hit you in the middle of something completely ordinary. You were driving. You were standing in a line. You were doing something that required none of your real attention. And suddenly the full weight of everything you are still waiting for collapsed onto you all at once. Not because something went wrong in that moment, but because the gap between where you are and where you were supposed to be by now felt unbearably wide. Or maybe it was 3 a.m, and you were awake for no clear reason, and there was a heaviness pressing into your chest that you could not name, could not explain, and could not shake. And you lay there in the dark and wondered if something was coming, if something was about to break, and you could not tell whether it would break in your favor or against you. I need you to hear me clearly. That is not depression. That is not defeat. That is not a sign that God has forgotten your name. That is the tremor before the earthquake. That is the pressure that builds in the atmosphere in the seconds before the storm breaks and the sky clears. That feeling, that weight, that tension, that sense of something about to rupture is the signature feeling of a threshold. And you are standing at one right now. But here is where it gets dangerous. Because the enemy knows you are at a threshold, and he knows exactly what is on the other side of it. And so his entire operation this week has been designed around one goal, keeping you from crossing. Before I go any further, if what I just described matches what you have been carrying this week, drop the word threshold in the comments right now. It costs you nothing, but I need to know that the right person found this message today. Go ahead, I will wait. Here is the specific strategy the enemy has been running on you. He has not come at you loudly. He has not shown up with obvious attacks that you could easily identify and reject. He is too calculated for that. He knows that if he comes at you with something loud, something dramatic, you will recognize it and stand against it. So instead he came quietly. He came with a whisper. And the whisper sounds like your own voice, which is exactly why it has been so effective. He has been replaying a specific moment in your memory. You know the one, the moment earlier this week or earlier this season, when you had every right to react, and you did not. When someone pushed you past what was fair, past what you deserve to absorb, and you had every weapon available to strike back, and you didn't. You pulled back. You went quiet. You chose restraint when retaliation was completely justified. And the enemy took that moment and wrapped it in a story. His story goes like this: that the reason everything still feels suspended, the reason the breakthrough has not fully landed, the reason the door still feels slightly closed, is because of what you did in that moment. He is telling you that by pulling back, by choosing silence, by not fighting for yourself, the way you had every right to fight, you signaled to heaven that you did not want what was coming badly enough. He is using your most spiritually mature moment against you. He took the moment where you acted like who God made you to be, and he is presenting it as the moment you disqualified yourself. He is also whispering something about timing, that you are behind, that you should have arrived at this breakthrough months ago, years ago, and the fact that you are still here, still waiting, still feeling this pressure, is proof that something fundamental went wrong somewhere along the way. That the door that was supposed to open for you opened for someone else. That the version of your life you were supposed to be living is being lived by a different version of you in a timeline where you made different choices. That is the lie in full, and I need you to see it for what it is. Not a truth that found you, but a strategy that was deployed against you. Now, let me give you the truth. The actual, scriptural, unshakable truth about what that moment of restraint meant. Romans 8:28 says, and I need you to hear this, not as a verse you already know, but as a living word for this exact moment. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. All things, not some things, not the things that felt strong, not the moments where you showed up perfectly. All things, including the moment you went silent, including the season of waiting that felt like abandonment, including every step backward that you could not understand at the time. The enemy wants you to audit your past and find the failure that explains the delay. But God is not running a performance review. He is building something, and the architecture of what he is building does not require your perfection. It requires your availability, and you have been available. You are still here. You did not walk away from your faith when the timeline did not match the promise. You did not abandon your post when the assignment got harder than you expected. You stayed, and staying, when everything in you wanted to leave, is not a minor footnote in your story. It is the central act, that moment of restraint. The one the enemy is using to accuse you was not weakness. It was the most powerful move you made this entire season, because it demonstrated something to the spiritual realm that cannot be faked and cannot be manufactured. It demonstrated that you are not driven by reaction. You are not governed by emotion. You are not controlled by what other people choose to do to you. You operate from a different level. And what God releases to a person who operates from a different level is categorically different from what is released to someone who is still being governed by the chaos around them. You did not lose ground in that moment. You took ground. You just could not see it yet because the spiritual territory that was transferred to you in that act of restraint exists in a realm you cannot see with your natural eyes. But it is real, and the pressure you are feeling right now, that sense of something enormous building, is partly the weight of that territory being handed to you. Here is the reframe I need you to carry into the rest of this message. You are not in a delay. You are in a delivery. The difference between a delay and a delivery is not the feeling. They feel almost identical. Both involve waiting. Both involve a gap between the promise and the fulfillment. Both come with pressure and uncertainty and the temptation to take matters into your own hands. But in a delay, nothing is moving. In a delivery, everything is moving. It is just moving in a dimension you cannot fully access yet. And the final test before the delivery arrives is always the same. It is the question of whether you will trust the process in the moment, when trusting feels the most unreasonable. Will you trust what God has already set in motion? Or will you grab back control at the exact moment heaven is about to move? The heaviness is not punishment, it is proximity. You are not being held back. You are being held, carefully, precisely, right at the edge of everything you have been believing for. Now I need to take you deeper, because what I have shared so far is the surface layer of what is happening. And you came here, whether you realized it or not, for something more than the surface. There is a reason this particular window of time carries so much spiritual weight for you. And it is not coincidence. And it is not the algorithm that brought you to this moment. There is no equation that accounts for why this specific message found you at this specific moment, in your specific week. The only honest explanation is that you were sent here. This is a divine appointment. And divine appointments are not comfortable. They are catalytic. They do not simply make you feel better. They shift something. They rearrange the atmosphere around your life. They hand you a new framework for interpreting everything that came before and everything that is about to come. So let me hand you that framework. The enemy does not attack what has no value. He does not construct elaborate schemes around ordinary lives moving toward ordinary destinations. His resources are not infinite, and his attention is not random. When he concentrates this level of sustained pressure on a single person across an entire week, when he orchestrates this specific combination of spiritual heaviness, mental replay, emotional suspension, and identity accusation, it is because he knows with certainty what is scheduled for that person. He cannot stop it. He does not have jurisdiction over the sovereignty of God, but he can attempt to ensure that when it arrives, you are in the wrong internal posture to receive it. He can attempt to make sure you are so tired, so doubting, so convinced of your own disqualification, that even when the door opens, you hesitate. That is his entire goal. Not to cancel the blessing. He cannot cancel what God has signed. His goal is to make sure you are standing in the wrong position when it arrives. He wants you crouching in shame when you should be standing in authority. He wants you paralyzed by the past when you should be facing forward. He wants your hands closed around your own plans when they should be open to receive what heaven is releasing. And here is what makes this particular moment so significant. What makes this week, this day, this message so loaded with weight. You are closer than you have ever been. I know that phrase sounds like something people say to keep you motivated when the encouragement has run out. But I am not saying it to keep you going. I am saying it because proximity has a feeling, and the feeling of being very close to a massive spiritual release feels almost identical to the feeling of being crushed under unbearable weight. The pressure does not decrease as you approach the breakthrough. It increases, because the closer you get to the release, the more the atmosphere around your life has to shift to accommodate what is coming. And shift feels like pressure. Shift feels like everything is wrong, when actually everything is aligning. The confusion you have been carrying is not evidence of disorder in your life. It is evidence of reordering. God is not confused about your situation. He is not scrambling. He is not improvising. He is executing a plan that was drawn up with divine precision before you ever took your first breath. And the plan includes everything you have been through. It includes the timing you do not understand. It includes the doors that did not open when you expected them to. It includes the people who were removed from your life before you were ready to release them. It includes the version of yourself that you had to grieve before you could become who you are right now. All of it is in the plan. All of it has been working together, and you are arriving right now. In this moment, at the point in the plan where the architecture of everything that came before begins to make sense. If this is landing, if something in your spirit is recognizing this word as something it has been waiting to hear, I need you to do something right now. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because what God is releasing in this season is not a single moment. It is a movement. And the messages that are coming are going to be exactly what you need. Exactly when you need them. Do not let the algorithm decide whether you receive them. You decide subscribe now, and then come back to me. Now, here is the part of this message that most people never get to. Most messages stop at the encouragement. Most messages hand you a reframe and a verse, and send you on your way. But there is something underneath all of this that has been running silently, like a river beneath the surface of everything. And until it is named and addressed, the breakthrough that is coming will arrive in a life that is not yet fully ready to hold it. Here is the hidden root, the greatest thing that has been quietly weighing on your spirit, more than the enemy's assignment, more than the spiritual warfare, more than the unanswered questions about your timing, is grief. Unprocessed grief. And I am not talking about grief in the conventional sense. I am not necessarily talking about a death or a loss that the world would immediately recognize as worthy of mourning. I am talking about the quiet, subconscious, rarely acknowledged grief over the version of your life that you had fully envisioned by now. The plan you built in your mind, specific, detailed, real, that did not unfold the way you drew it. The relationships that did not survive your growth. The dreams you had to release before they reached their fullness. The version of yourself you had to leave behind in order to become who God is calling you to be. That grief is real. It is legitimate, and it is holy in its own profound way. But here is what grief does when it goes unprocessed. When it is never named, never honored, never consciously released. It functions as weight, not visible weight, not the kind of weight you can point to and explain to someone else, but a weight that your spirit drags into every new thing God is trying to do in your life. You step toward the new open door, still holding a funeral for the door that closed. You reach for what is coming while part of you is still mourning what was, and you cannot run at full capacity when part of you is still standing at the grave of what used to be. God is doing something in this moment that is both gentle and urgent. He is not dismissing your grief. He is not telling you that what you lost did not matter, that the pain was not real, that you should have moved on faster. He is not minimizing the significance of what had to be released. He is acknowledging all of it, fully, tenderly, with complete understanding of how much it cost you. And He is extending to you, right now, an invitation. The invitation is not to forget, it is to transition, to move what you are carrying. All of it, every piece of it, from the heavy, immobilizing category of grief into the liberating, forward-moving category of gratitude. Because every single thing you perceived as a loss in this season, every closed door, every relationship that ended, every dream that had to be laid down, every version of yourself that had to be left behind, none of it was arbitrary. None of it was random cruelty from a God who stopped paying attention. Every single piece of it was cleared from your path with surgical precision. It was removed, not to diminish you, not to punish you. Not because you did something wrong, but because it was occupying space that something far greater needed. It was not taken. It was exchanged, and what is on the other side of that exchange is arriving. But you have to put down the weight of what was in order to receive the fullness of what is coming. You cannot hold the old and embrace the new at the same time. The hands that are still clenched around what was taken cannot be fully open to receive what is being given. And here is the most radical truth embedded in all of this. The truth that, if you will let it fully reach you, has the power to permanently shift the way you interpret your entire story. The breakthrough that is now arriving is not arriving because you finally did enough. It is not arriving because you prayed the right prayer with the right level of faith, or because you performed flawlessly enough to deserve it, or because your track record finally crossed some invisible threshold of worthiness. It is arriving for one reason and one reason only. God is faithful, not because you are perfect, because He is. Not because your faith was strong enough every day, because His character does not change based on the fluctuation of your emotions. Not because you earned it, because He promised it before you were born, before you made a single choice, before you had any track record at all. The promise existed before the person, and the faithfulness that is now bringing the promise into manifestation is not contingent on what you did or did not do in the waiting. Your worthiness was never the variable. His faithfulness was always the constant, which means the door that is opening before this day closes is not opening because you finally got everything right. It is opening because it was always designed to open. And you, by grace and by the stubborn refusal to quit, have made it to the threshold. You have arrived. Now I need you to do something. Not in your mind, out loud. There is a spiritual dimension to spoken declaration that thought alone cannot access. What you release with your voice carries an authority that your inner dialogue does not. The enemy knows this. He works overtime to keep you silent, to keep your most powerful declarations locked inside a mind where they cannot reach the atmosphere around your life. This is the moment you break that silence. Place your hand on your chest, not as a ritual, as a decision, a deliberate, conscious, physical act of alignment, your body agreeing with what your spirit is about to declare. Feel your own heartbeat. That beat is evidence. Evidence that you are still here. Evidence that you have not been disqualified, not been abandoned, not been overlooked. The fact that your heart is still beating means your assignment is still active. The fact that you are still standing means the story is not over. Now speak these words. Speak them with your full voice. Speak them as someone who knows who they are and whose they are. Speak them not as a wish, as a verdict. I release the grief of what I thought my life should look like by now. I release the weight of every timeline that did not match the promise. I release every conversation I have replayed. Every moment I have reinterpreted as failure. Every version of myself I have mourned. I declare that the enemy has no jurisdiction over my assignment. He has no authority over my threshold. He has no power to delay, diminish, or redirect what God has signed and sealed over my life. I declare that every act of restraint I chose this week was not weakness. It was warfare. Every moment of silence, every step back, every time I held my tongue when I had every right to strike. That was territory being transferred to my name in the Spirit. I receive the breakthrough that is arriving, not because I earned it, but because my God is faithful. I receive the open door, not because my performance was perfect, but because His promises are unbreakable. I am seen. I am chosen. I am covered. What was written over my life before the foundations of the earth were laid will not be stolen. It will not be diminished. It will not be delayed by 1 hour past the moment God has appointed. It is arriving. It is here. It is sealed. In the name of Jesus, it is done. Take a breath. Let that settle. What just moved in your spirit is real. What just shifted in the atmosphere around your life is real. Declarations are not wishful thinking dressed in religious language. They are the act of a child of God taking their position, speaking into the spiritual realm the truth about who they are and what they carry, and refusing to let the enemy's narrative be the loudest voice in the room. There is one more thing I need to give you before we close, because there is a question I know is sitting underneath everything you have absorbed in this message. It is the question that always surfaces after a moment of genuine spiritual clarity. You feel the shift, you feel the declaration land. And then, very quietly, the question rises, what do I do now? What does walking through this threshold actually look like in practical terms? Here is the answer, and it is simpler than the enemy has made it seem. You stop trying to manufacture the moment. Everything that has been carrying the most weight in your spirit this week, the mental rehearsals, the replaying of old conversations, the attempts to figure out what you should have done differently, the strategies for how to force the door open, all of that is energy you have been spending trying to create in your own strength, what God has already created in His. And the exhaustion you have been carrying is not just the exhaustion of the spiritual battle. It is the exhaustion of trying to do in the natural what can only be done in the spirit. Your only assignment right now is posture. What is your posture? Not your performance, not your output, not your strategy. Your posture. Are you crouching in fear or standing in authority? Are you reaching back toward what was or facing forward, toward what is coming? Are your hands clenched around your own plan, or open to receive what heaven is releasing? Posture is everything at a threshold, because a threshold does not require you to build what is on the other side. It only requires you to step through, and stepping through requires three things, and only three things. First, release the audit. Stop going back over your past, looking for the mistake that explains the delay. The audit is the enemy's tool, not God's God. Does not ask you to find your failure. He asks you to trust His faithfulness. Every moment you spend reviewing your disqualifications is a moment you are not spending receiving your inheritance. Close the audit. You are not on trial. Second, honor the grief. Not by staying in it, by naming it, by saying out loud to God, to yourself, I am grieving this. This loss was real. This cost me something, and I am choosing to give it to you. Not because it did not matter, but because you can do something with it that I cannot. Grief that is named loses half its power. Grief that is named and surrendered loses the rest. You do not have to stop mourning overnight, but you do have to stop carrying the weight of it alone. Third, receive the verdict, not the enemy's verdict, which is accusation, delay, and disqualification. The true verdict, the one that was handed down before you ever made a single choice. You are chosen, you are called, you are covered. The assignment on your life is still active. The door that was written over your name is still approaching. The faithfulness of God toward you has not flickered, has not wavered, has not been interrupted by a single moment of your weakness or your waiting. That is the verdict. Receive it, not as a feeling, as a fact. Facts do not require feelings to be true. The verdict stands regardless of whether you feel it in this moment. Receive it as the foundation you stand on when you step through the threshold. Now here is what I need from you before you leave this message. If this word reached the part of you that needed it most today, do not let it stop here. There is someone in your life right now, you already know who it is, who has been carrying exactly what you have been carrying. Maybe they have not told you. Maybe they would not know how to put it into words. But you know, you can feel it. They are standing at a threshold of their own, and they are doing it without the framework to understand what they are experiencing. They are interpreting the weight as failure. They are reading the pressure as punishment, and they are very, very close to walking away right before the delivery arrives. Send them this message, not with a long explanation, not with a theological breakdown. Just send it and say, "Watch this. I think it is for you." That is all. Let the word do what the word does. You may be the reason someone stays. And if this message confirmed something that your spirit was already carrying, something you knew but could not articulate until this moment, drop a word in the comments. Even just received or threshold or standing at the edge. Let me know that the right person found this. Let the community around this message know that they are not alone in what they are carrying, and stay connected. Not because I have something to sell you, not because there is a program to join or a tier to unlock, but because what God is releasing in this season is not a single moment. It is a sustained movement, and the messages that are coming are going to meet you exactly where you are, exactly when you need them. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and let what is coming find you. You came here carrying something, a weight you could not fully name, a pressure that felt like it was building towards something, but you did not know what. Now you know. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are not too late. You are standing exactly where you were always supposed to be standing at this moment. Now cross. Walk through the threshold. Walk through it in authority. Walk through it with your head up and your hands open. Walk through it knowing that what is on the other side was already prepared for you before you ever faced the question of whether you deserved it. Walk through it because God is faithful. And you, beloved, are exactly who He said you were before the enemy ever tried to convince you otherwise. The word has been released. The decree has been spoken. The atmosphere has shifted. Go, and do not look back.